Richard, did you know it's cheaper to buy a house now than it was in 1979? QVT! Oh boy, that's something else, eh?
Yeah.
Cheaper to buy a house now than it is in 1979? How is that? How is that possible?
That's going to be the question. Everyone's going to be like, what do you mean it's cheaper to buy now than in 1979? But we're going to go through it today.
It is cheaper to buy a house now than it was in 1979 and afford the house now than it was in 1979. Trust me. Let's just go through some of these numbers so you understand them. Roll back the clock to 1979, a year marked with a seismic shift in the UK government with Margaret Thatcher coming to power. This was the momentous time for the country to symbolise a new direction. I could hear people with the pitchforks and the torches now, especially in Scotland. However, you've got to understand where we are in 1979. Chaos reigns. Inflation's at something like 19%. Interest rates are at 25%. It is out of control completely. And Margaret Thatcher comes to power with a Conservative government in 79 and begins to make things happen. Fast forward to 2024, though. And we could be about to experience another significant change with Sir Keir Starmer leading the Labour Party to victory.
Yeah.
Whether that's a seismic change for the difference, for the better, or for the worse. Only time will tell. When you think about it, such pivotal moments often set the stage for substantial change in various sectors, including the property market itself. And this article in the show we're doing now in the podcast explores the evolution of the Fife Properties Market from 1979 to the present day right now, highlighting the long-term benefits of home ownership and the dynamics of the buy-to-let market.
Yeah.
So, what has it been like for property values since 1979, Richard?
Yeah, I was just to kind of pick up on something that you mentioned, Dave, when we're talking about, and people will still be thinking, do you know, we're trying to say that the house prices compared to 1979, but a big thing there is obviously you mentioned affordability and things as well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, property values since 1979, reflecting on the changes that we've had since 1979, property values in Fife have soared by an astounding, wait for it, 862.2%.
Wow.
That's a crazy figure to think about.
I mean, when you look at that, you kind of think to yourself, and somebody's going to tell me that the property market isn't really a good investment. Really? with that kind of numbers, and you're still telling me that property is not a good investment?
Yeah, I mean that states that obviously the average Fife home has risen in value from £21,395 in 1979 to £205,869 today.
Wow.
So to contextualize this, inflation over the same period has only been 374.7%. So inflation.
So almost a 500% difference, in real terms, in terms of property prices going up.
Yeah. So for argument's sake, let's just say 375% for inflation, 862% for property.
I mean, this dramatic increase actually underscores why property ownership has become increasingly challenging over many years, making it an attractive proposition for landlords, no doubt.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely. And there's been, there's been shifts. I mean, what shifts in property ownership have we had in Fife?
Oh, let me think. Examining, I suppose, local authority data for Fife. In 1979, 37% of residents actually lived in council housing or social housing. Today, that figure is only 23% now. I mean, that's a significant decline. And that can be attributed really to the Margaret Thatcher's policy allowing council tenants to buy their own homes. Meanwhile, the private rental sector had increased significantly over that period, with the proportion of privately rented properties rising from 3.1% to 12.3% in that period. It's a lot, isn't it? So really, the seismic shift has happened from basically it's 37 to 23, which is 14%, yeah, and 3 to about 13, which is about 10%. So the net effect has the private rented sector has picked up the social rented sector's responsibility.
I mean, you can clearly see that in those figures.
And therein lies the problematic issue with social and council housing. The failure, repeated failure, despite everybody telling them to build affordable and council housing over that period of time that they were doing the sell-off. The sell-off was only ever intended because the Thatcher government at the time realised that the repair bill for all the stock at the HUD over all the countries, over the whole of the counties and everything, authorities and the whole of the UK was astronomical. And they could not afford that repair bill. So in order to mitigate that and pass over, what they did was pass over responsibility to council tenants by giving them huge incentives to buy the property and then take that responsibility off them. That was the driver behind it.
And now it's left them with.
But what happened out of that is they didn't follow through by then taking that money and building new council housing.
Yeah, and it's the same with like obviously buy-to-let investment when you're doing your own portfolio. Reinvesting that money back into the stock basically, and they didn't do that.
So contrary to what somebody might expect, then the home ownership in Fife has grown in the years. In 1979, home ownership was around about 20% of the Fife population actually owned their own homes. Today, that figure stands at 65%. My God,
which is quite a lot.
That's unbelievable. 20% to 65% since that time in home ownership in Fife. That's an astronomical leap. Now you think about this. Think about the what's behind this. Then, when you have home ownership, here's the argument. Here's what actually happened. When you have home ownership, people take mortgages out. Therefore, people in the banks get jobs because the brokers get jobs. So think about the process. More solicitors are needed because you're buying more houses. So more conveyancers are needed. So there's jobs created there as well. When people actually own their own home, they tend to spend a lot more money on improvements and actually decoration and carpets and kitchens and bathrooms. And there's no doubt about that. So what happened with the council house sell-off? And I remember it, Richard. Obviously, you were still arriving at some point, were you? No?
Yeah, I was 86.
You were 86. You weren't here yet. You were just a thought at that point in time. Maybe could be. But you were here. So thank God for that. So when you think about the amount of money that then was spent because people were buying their own houses, and that meteoric rise from 20% of the people in Fife actually owning a house to 65% of people in Fife owning a house since that period of time to today, that's an astronomical jump. And then all the businesses that popped out as a result of that because of all the improvements that were done. So there's a huge argument to the fact that yes, it probably was the right policy, but it just was never followed up.
They didn't do the follow-up, the proper follow-up.
The follow-up was we've no got enough money because Britain was actually on its knees at that time with meteoric debt. Now, we could go on today about meteoric debt now and COVID and what's that all caused and everything, and the credit crunch and everything like that. But then back at that time, it was really astronomically worse. Interest rates were sitting at 25%, inflation was sitting at 19%, and today inflation's at 2% and interest rates are 5.25%.
Yeah, which is
huge change.
When you look at it like that,
So then where are we then? The evolution of the buy-to-let market. So what happened here then? How did this all come about? I mean, when you think about it, I've been in the buy-to-let market since mid-90s. So there's about 30 years. But this was 1979. So where was the evolution of the buy-to-let market and how did it all come about then from that period?
Yeah, so I mean, on the backdrop of the reduced council housing and availability and a growing private rented sector, it really sets the stage for the buy-to-let market, particularly here in Fife. Now, historically, the market has relied heavily on property value appreciation, often at the expense of the yield. However, recent changes in tax laws and landlord-tenant regulations and really reshaping this landscape, while challenging for some, these regulatory changes present opportunities for astute investors and people that really know what they're doing. So landlords might need to reassess their strategies, adjust their financing methods, or even explore the investment opportunities, possibly maybe beyond Fife, although I would, yeah. But this shift will likely highlight investments with healthier yields, fostering long-term stability over the short-term speculation.
So when you think about it, Richard, I did the UK House Price Index yesterday for Scotland,
Yeah, I've seen
and we
that.
looked over these numbers, and then what I found was the Fife has actually gone from average to just above average in terms of the price. So in the whole map of Scotland, when you look at it, it's just Fife is now getting to be a wee bit heated up in terms of the average house price, according to the UK House Price Index, which is the Office of National Statistics. So this is where you've got to wonder then. It's exactly what you said. Is there healthier years somewhere else, like Lanark or somewhere like that? You know, somewhere that's a lot less, a lot easily affordable. You know, a lot better price point. Is there an opportunity in these areas? You know, I'm still a Fife person. I'm still a Fife investor, and I still invest in Fife. I'm buying another 2 there now. I'll probably buy another 8 to 9 properties in the next coming year, as well, just to round things up a bit. But long-term investment versus short-term gains is the thing that I've got to really think about. And as we consider the value of buying a home versus the allure of short-term investments, it's essential to understand the broader implications for the Fife market and homeowners and landlords in particular. The substantial increase in property values since 1979 actually illustrates the long-term benefits of home ownership. Despite market fluctuations, though, owning a home has historically provided significant financial returns. It's pretty good, eh?
Yeah, but it's important to realise that that's over the long term, and obviously homeowners and
Property is always,
on the long
always,
term.
always, 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 always a medium to long term game. More so a long term game now in property investment instead of medium, because I don't think you've got the returns now. Because remember, the boom's happened, so the boom's over. But remember, on average, since the beginning of 2000, property has actually increased 4% every single year on average. Now, inflation hasn't gone up that much in comparison. Plus the fact, if you're renting, if you're a private landlord or you're investing in property service accommodation or that, then technically you're actually earning an extra return over and above the return on the capital appreciation that you're going to get on the property as well, if you do it right. The key here is you've got to do it right. You've got to get your numbers right. It's funny enough, Jerry Alexander, actually, commercial property. Or was it Shaft Razul? Yeah, from The Sun. I was actually commenting on one of his posts on LinkedIn, and I actually says, hey, these are good numbers. And he went, it's all about the numbers. I went, oh my God, separated at birth. It's like, because that's all I think about. It's just all about the numbers. And he said exactly the same thing. And he's a big commercial investor, huge commercial investor. I think he puts me into, small league when I look at him. But I'm not really sure if that's the case or no. It's maybe just because he's got a bit more publicity with the Sun newspaper and being a journalist for them.
Yeah.
But you've got to think about that. I mean, short-term investments, while potentially lucrative, carry higher risks and can be influenced by the transit markets and the trends that happen overall. Look at Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Certainly nobody spoke about Bitcoin now, ever. It never gets mentioned. It's disappeared.
Yeah.
Now we've got programs on the television saying what happened to the Bitcoin Queen. It naffed off with everybody's money. Millions and millions of pounds on Channel 4. It's like she disappeared and just, run away with everybody's money. Sam, it's like the boy Friedman or whatever his name was. It's, you know, that went kibosh and went up the spout as well. It's like, you know, I don't hear anybody talking about Bitcoin now. So when you think about the short-termism and how people think, this is human nature, by the way. This is gambling. Human nature, we love to gamble. Hence the reason why you have addicted people. Hence the reason why you've got all these people on Betfair and, you know, places like that, and Ladbrokes Online and all these different online betting schemes. And that's why they're all online and they're promoting it to you all the time, and it's on the television. They're no daft. Because everybody keeps thinking to themselves, it's the old Del Boy thing about this thing, about this time next year we'll be millionaires. No, you won't. House always wins. You'll never beat the house long term. The house always wins because the odds are always stacked in their favour, not yours. Even when you go to a casino and you do it's not a 50-50 here. It's like the casino wins when you have a draw. Especially on, especially on poker and stuff like that, and you know, if you or blackjack, if you have blackjack and you both have 20 each, the house wins automatically every single time. So the odds are always stacked in your and against you and in the favour of the person that's there. And it's the same with the short-termism in terms of look to that. So that's why you have to look at long term, and you have to look at investments which can give you more or less a guaranteed return, and the numbers work every single time. And that's why it's so important. So the recent change in the property market, though, and evolving regulations further complicate the short-term investment strategies for Fife homeowners and for any homeowners. The focus should be really, as I said, on the long-term value appreciation, the stability, and the sustainable returns overall.
Yeah. I think when I mentioned about astute landlords, and I'll go on and obviously talk about landlords who really know what they're doing, and when they do follow the right strategies and know what they're doing, the long term is always the goal. These short term investments and these get rich quick things, they're all driven by, social media is quite a bad one for pushing it out now. Do you know what I mean? I've done this, made this in a matter of months, and it's like, okay.
Do you notice everybody talks about in social media about their wins, but nobody ever talks about their losses? And I bet you there's been some horrific losses for these people that have got these wins, but they're deliberately doing it to engineer it to try and get investors. That's what it's all about. They're just trying to attract somebody so they can actually invest their money in them, so they can use their money to leverage their position because they ain't got any money. When somebody comes on and says they're looking for investors, remember, they're stony broke. They've got less money than you. This is a poor man trying to teach somebody that's wealthier, tell somebody wealthier, invest with me and I'll make you more money. Hold it. If that was the case, you would have made more money in the first place. And you'd be wealthier than the person that's investing in you.
Yeah, definitely. So then it brings us on.
What opportunities do we have then, Richard? What is the opportunity for landlords, and particularly Fife landlords then?
So the current market really presents quite unique opportunities for Fife landlords. And, I've said about the regulatory changes, and it might cause some landlords to panic. And I say it has caused some landlords to panic. And it leading to reduced competition for lucrative buy-to-let properties, because these people are panicking and exiting the market. I mean, this scenario offers a more stable environment for knowledgeable and experienced landlords. And that's their time to really thrive, because while everybody's panicking and exiting the market, they've got their head in the game, their numbers are right, and you've got multiple opportunities at your fingertips because everybody else is on the way.
Guess what happened yesterday? The Scottish Association of Landlords put a wee press release out, or a social media post, and said they're having a meeting with Paul McLennan. And Paul McLennan, the Housing Minister for Scotland, has indicated that he might actually reconsider taking such a staunch approach as it is just now for rent controls and the impending legislation that's coming in place. He's looking to probably actually soften that quite a bit. I told you this would happen. And everybody said, no, they're going to do this and they're going to do that. I'm convinced that that's not the case. Anyway, Linda, let's answer your question, Linda.
I was reading that.
Linda said, this is interesting. Linda said, here we go, Linda. I'll put it up there. So here we go. Linda says, what will you do with another 9 properties, Jim? And what is the end goal? don't be like Joe Biden and work too long. Live your life. Agreed. Property is an awesome asset for most, and a YouTube channel. Not really sure what that bit means.
Linda's coming through YouTube. She's watching on YouTube.
Yeah, okay. And on the YouTube channel. Okay, property is a awesome. Yeah, we both agree on that. What will I do with another 9 properties? It will go into my portfolio. What will happen with my portfolio? What is the end goal? To pass it on to my children. So my children never need to worry ever again about money, about any financial situation. And then they'll have children, which will be my grandchildren, and then they will have that as well. And then they'll have children, which will be my great grandchildren. I'll still be alive by then. And then, yeah, I intend to live to 120-year-old. I want to be the fastest man to run 100 meters. And there's somebody run it, a woman run it, 106-year-old and 36 seconds. And I'm going to beat that. And I'm going to be the person that's going to do a triathlon at 100 years old. That is not the end goal. That is just the beginning. And I've got to make sure this all works.
Yeah.
So I've got 50 years to work on making sure the body still stays intact and the brain still stays functioning. Hence the reason why I put a lot of time and effort into learning from people far more successful and people that have lived a lot longer than me. See the pattern of behavior here. You know, find somebody that's actually succeeding at what you want to do and start to mimic what they're doing. You know, look at what they're doing and start to incorporate that into your habits and what you're doing as well. It's the same for everything. If you want to learn, find somebody that's more successful than you in that particular field and start to mimic their behaviors, what they're doing, how they're doing it, and you know, take it on board. And you'll get the same as what they've got. And then you could start to work from there and think, can I make this more efficient? Can I do this better? Can I just go one step further than that person? And then you'll get even more extraordinary results as a result of that. Definitely. So, let's coming back to emphasize the shift. And you were on there, Richard, about opportunities for Fife landlords. Let's talk about that.
Yes, we're talking about obviously that stable environment for knowledgeable and experienced landlords, and that opportunity for them to thrive. And that really emphasizes that emphasis will then shift towards property with stronger yield potential rather than the speculative short-term gains that we were talking about earlier. Okay, so really in this evolving market, it's crucial for Fife landlords to stay informed and adapt their strategies accordingly. Now, this might involve exploring different property types or adjusting maybe your rental models, or you could diversify your investments, but we say time and time again, don't try and reinvent the wheel. But maybe to include areas with better yield prospects and things. So look at different, and that's why Fife is so good, because it's got such a diverse. The areas in Fife, you could go from the kind of suburban to the semi-rural.
It's a microcosm of the UK.
Yeah, and there's a good
literally London. St Andrews is the London of Fife. You know, Ely's fast approaching as well, but Ely is sort of people from London anyway. So it is kind of the London of Fife as well. But St Andrews is predominantly the one end of the spectrum, the London of Fife, which has all the aspirations, has all the wealth, and huge property prices. And then you've got the in-betweens, but you've got the East Neuk followed by that, you've got Cooper followed by it as well, and then you come into the Levenmouth area, then you've got Kirkcaldy, Glenrothes, and Dunfermline. And that's kind of how it works right across the board in terms of the price, because it all cascades from the east of Fife to the west of Fife, and the same with the selling pattern, the behaviours and analytics that everybody's actually doing in terms of house buying, house selling, and house investing. So, and then you've got the bottom end of Fife, which is mainly industrialised. You've got the top end of Fife, which is mainly farming community, rural. And that's kind of why it's pretty reflective of what goes on in the UK itself, because you can see how different areas aspire to the other ones, and how some areas need a bit more investment. For example, the Levenmouth area has had about 120 million pumped into it with the new train station and other things that are getting done, plus another 30 million that's going into it with the upgrade of the River Leven and what they're doing is there as well. So the River Leven project. So that's 30 million. So there's 150 million going into Leven in the Levenmouth area. So I think you're going to see a huge potential for tourism in the Leven over, you know, people can say, oh, can you know,
That's
you
not going
get
to happen overnight.
you get the naysayers that say, "Oh, it's never going to happen," and all the rest of it. It's like, yeah, it'll take 5 to 10 years. It'll take a wee bit longer, but it's a journey. It is not a destination, and it ain't a quick fix. You are not going to repair 50 years worth of damage to the local economy in 50 days, in 50 weeks, in 50 months. It's going to take you a long time. It's going to take you a long time to do that, definitely, to get back to where it could have been if the regeneration had been in there and it had constantly been maintained and they hadn't shut down the rail system. And that was a stark reality of the report that came out and said, this is where we can save money. Let's just shut it all down. And yet the whole of the continent was doing exactly opposite and investing in their structure and their infrastructure and their technology and their commuting and making it really easy for people and cost effective for people. And it works. And as is Andy Burnham in Manchester, the mayor of Manchester. You know, when I was speaking to Andrew Burnham at Glastonbury, I mean, he was talking about the fact that, you know, we're putting all that in, so it's low cost to travel anywhere. And you could see how they're taking it all back, and he's becoming more devolved, like Scotland is, as a result of it. So he can spend the money on things that he wants, and they can refocus and rebrand and put the money where it's needed, rather than actually just saying, you know, well, I'm just going to have to follow what everybody else is saying. But I don't need a huge amount put into this. I could take that money and put it in somebody. But that's what you're getting it for. So you're either going to put it in there or you're not getting it at all. This is why devolution is quite a good idea. Because it allows you to do that, definitely.
But yeah, and it's the same. It's the same when you talk about, obviously, this the investment in infrastructure and the money that's been put into the Leavenmouth area and things. And like you say, the naysayers, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to happen over a period of time. And it's the same when I talk about like landlords and investment in the Fife area and things as well. The key really is to maintain that long-term perspective, focusing on substantial growth and stable returns over a long period of time, or medium to long term at least. Short-term gains and this get-rich quick thing is just not.
Here's a really good one, and Linda's hit the nail on the head here. I think Labour will invest a huge amount of money in central Scotland before 2026, and we all know why that is, because the Scottish elections will be coming up.
Yes,
and they'll be wanting to take the Scottish Parliament as well, and they've got a real good chance
of
doing it.
If they do that, they've got a chance to get in more votes.
So I think the benefit to Scotland for Labour being in power just now is that very fact. So devolution has actually helped us in having our own Scottish Parliament. And well, time will tell, but I'm assuming this will probably end up happening, and we'll get a huge amount of investment into Scotland as a result of that. You could, you know, I'm not. It's not been political saying that, because you know I have another party that I support, but I do think that's what will happen as a natural result of it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But we come back to saying this: SNP still in charge of the housing, because housing's devolved in Scotland, as many other things are.
Yeah, but that's a good point, Linda. Thanks for sharing that.
Be interesting to see how they interpret that, though, because if Labour plough a lot of money into Scotland before 2026 in order to try and influence voters, then are the SNP going to gobble it all up and say, well, that was us that did that?
It was because of us this is happening.
You know what I mean? So how are they going to engineer that? So it's like, well, that's us that did that. You know, how are they going to be able to take the credit for that if it's devolved and it's the SNP that's in charge of the Scottish government and have got the power? Because they'll have to give it to Scotland, or are they just going to try and you know, circumvent them and go around it and actually just avoid them completely and say, no, this is us that's putting it in, and it's got absolutely nothing to do with you. You could see that now with the GB Energy, how they're putting hundreds of millions. I'm not really sure what's going on with that, by the way. It's like, oh, we're putting hundreds of millions into that, or whatever it is we're putting in, and it's like, but what are we trying to do here? I'm still not absolutely sure of what we're trying to achieve there, but that's nothing really to do with what we're talking here. But it'll be interesting to see how that evolves, and especially for housing as well, because if Labour overall is adamant that council housing is the way forward, like we are. I mean, I'm a big fan of it. I've been beating that drum for over 25 years, and it's always been the solution to everything, as far as I'm concerned. Build more council housing. That's the solution to everything. Build more affordable and council housing. That solves everything. If you've got high rents, build more social and affordable housing. Therefore, the rents will stabilise because all these people will now have housing to have. So therefore, the demand will not be there for the private rented sector. Therefore, it will start to come down and equalise like it has done in the past. If you've got overinflated house prices in a housing market, for example, in St Andrews or anything like that, then you take all the people out of the system in the private rented sector, potentially in these areas, get them in affordable and social housing and council housing in that area, and therefore the private rented sector then start to sell off because it's like we've got no market anymore, and therefore that's when the prices start to come down again for owner occupiers and start to stabilize and realign as well at the same time. So the answer to everything in terms of how do you solve the homelessness in a crisis, anything, is build more affordable and council housing. And I really mean council housing, not Kingdom, not your housing associations. They are a for-profit business. Whether you like it or not, they just call it a surplus. But they are a for-profit business because now they're competing in the mid-market rent sector. And they say it's not your money that they're using, but they've been using your money because that's how they built it in the first place. So the resources that they're using for the existing council and social housing, we gave them all free money for, is actually getting used to invade the mid-market rents now, which is actually the same as market rents like private landlords.
They are
so effectively just come private landlords, and they're just pretending that they're no. Oh, we've got a different arm. It's called a different name. Bullshit. Don't kid me on, eh? You can't kid a kidder, is the expression. So the evolving market, crucial at Fife landlords, stay informed, adapt their strategies. I think you probably said all this anyway, Richard. Involve and explore the subjects, the rental models, adjust. We're going to talk about that tonight anyway at the property investors meeting tonight we're going to have in Markinch. And I'm going to show people how to look at the numbers and how to look at your risk and your diversity of investments and what is the key drivers behind property investment that you should be keeping an eye on in order to guarantee your end result. Imagine just knowing the numbers and knowing that your end result is going to be guaranteed. You're going to win regardless. You can't lose. You can't lose. Yeah, I've just said it. You cannot lose. It's impossible. Because if you lost in this scenario that I teach for the Financial Freedom Blueprint, that every single person in the UK will lose on their house as well as a result of that. And every single bank will go under as well as a result of that. So the only way you can lose is for all the banks to go under, the housing market to completely crash. And mind you, in 2008, when we had the credit crunch, I actually gained.
And that's
so I still never lost.
All comes back to making sure the numbers were right in the first place.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. So what is the final thoughts? I would say reflecting on the dramatic rise of the Fife property values since 1979, it's clear that long-term property investment can yield substantial returns. While the market has undergone significant changes, though, the fundamentals of the property investment remain quite robust overall. With Fife homeowners and landlords in particular, the challenge is really to navigate the evolving landscape with a focus on long-term value and stability, I think, is the key here. What's your thoughts? The opportunities then?
Yeah, so I mean, opportunities are really abundant for those who are really prepared to adapt and embrace change. We say that all the time, really embrace change. And as we look ahead, the emphasis on yield and sustainable investment strategies will become ever more increasingly important. So that's where I would leave it there for me.
Definitely. And if anybody's interested in learning more about this and all the rest of it, get in touch with Richard. Don't get in touch with me.
we kind of sidetracked into like wealth creation stuff today.
Yeah, definitely.
And we do that every Monday on a 12:30 and at 12:30 on a Monday. And we're doing our topic this Monday coming as maintaining momentum, and you'll get us on all these platforms on Monday.
Yeah. I was only kidding when I says don't get in touch with me, because generally, people get in touch with me and then I point them in the right direction in order to get what they're needing to solve. That's it. I basically get involved in solving people's problems. That's it. And it just so happens we sell their house at the same time. Whereas you're kind of similar, Richard. You get involved in solving people's problems, and you rent their property at the same time as well. And that's it. We're just problem solvers at the end of the day, making it really easy for people to navigate that field. Because trying to learn all that from scratch and trying to sell your house yourself or let your house yourself is a minefield nowadays. So if you want more information, please feel free to reach out to us. Stick something in the comments. And thanks, Linda, for commenting. Until next time, guys, it's bye-bye from us. See you on the Saturday show at 9:30, by the way. Bye-bye for now.